light, so that lamps may be kept burning. Verse 28, have Aaron your brother brought to you from among the Israelites. Make sacred garments, verse 2, for your brother Aaron, and to give him dignity and honor. Tell all the skilled workers to whom I've given wisdom in such matters, that they are to make garments for Aaron for his consecration, so he may serve me as priest. And then we get details of the garments. And here in verse 6 it says, make an ephod of gold and of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. An ephod is like an apron, but it goes over the front and it goes over the back, not on the sides. Okay? So it's like it drapes around you, and it just hangs over the front and it hangs over the back, and it probably comes down to about here. It's just like a colorful thing that someone might wear, like a cummerbund. We wear it for tuxedos. Some dudes wear vests or a tie. Those things are pointless in terms of clothing, but they give you color. So here's this ephod, and it's part of this decorative piece that God wants the priests to wear. Then they've got other clothes that go on around it too. You see some of these other things. Verse 9, take onyx stones and engrave on them some stuff and put them on the ephod. Verse 15, fashion a breastpiece for making decisions, the work of skilled hands. I don't have time to get into that. Verse 22, for the breastpiece make braided chains of pure gold like a rope. Skip down to verse 29. Whenever Aaron enters the holy place, he will bear the names of the sons of Israel over his heart on the breastpiece of decision as a continuing memorial before the Lord. Man, the details just keep on coming. Verse 31, make the robe of the ephod entirely of blue cloth. Verse 36, make a plate of pure gold and engrave on it as a seal, holy to the Lord. And that gets stuck on his head. The hat that he wears, the turban that he wears, that gets that. Verse 39, weave the tunic of fine linen and make the turban of fine linen. Verse 42, make linen undergarments. Skip to chapter 29. Even the underwear, by the way. Even the underwear. God's like, I want you to make underwear my way. Okay? This is crazy. Verse 1, this is what you're to do to consecrate them. And then all of chapter 29 is a description for a service that is going to be done to set up Aaron and his sons as the high priests. Chapter 30, we learn about the altar. Then we learn about, in verse 11, we learn about money. Then in verse 17, we learn about a washing basin. Then in verse 22, we learn about oil. Then in verse 34, we learn about incense. And we finally come to 31. And check this out. Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have chosen Bezalel son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. Moreover, I've appointed Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him. Also, I've given ability to all the skilled workers to make everything I have commanded you. God spends chapters describing all the details for Moses. And he says, by the time you get back down to the bottom of this mountain, I want you to find two dudes, Bezalel and Aholiab. You know their dads, you know their families, you know how to find them, because those guys have it going on to do all the stuff that I just told you to do, because I put my Spirit in them. Here's the thing. The first principle we need to come to when it comes to worship is the recognition that God is so big, He's so valuable, He's so awesome, that all of our decorative extravagance doesn't match His worth. In fact, I put it this way. God called for extravagant skill, and then He empowered the people to do it. Then He empowered some of the people to provide it. When we come to worship God, there needs to be an element of skill on display. There needs to be an element of our best is coming to the table here. And not just an element of this is as good as I can do. But if I can't do very well, I'm going to find someone else who can do even better. And I'm going to say, listen, has the Holy Spirit of God impacted your life so much that you can do this thing skillfully, well, with excellence? If so, by all means, let's bring that before God. We bring our best. and even find that which is better than what we can bring. Jesus speaks to Moses on that mountain and says, when you worship me, bring your best. Let's go on. That's extravagant skill is one component of worship. In Mark chapter 14, we get another picture of extravagance. Mark 14, beginning in verse 1, we read this. Now the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him, but not during the festival, they said, or the people may riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. I don't know what nard is, but it was really expensive back then. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor. And they rebuked her harshly. This perfume, this bottle of perfume was worth $55,000. This bottle of perfume was worth $55,000. And she broke it and poured it on the dirt, hitting Jesus in the process. That's what these guys are thinking. These guys are thinking, that perfume ended up on the ground. And Jesus says, leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, but you will not always have me. She did what she could. He makes it sound like a small thing. She did what she could. That's as much as she could have done. These guys are thinking, she did way too much. Jesus says, she did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she's done will also be told in memory of her. That line touches me deeply when Jesus says, leave her alone. She has done a beautiful thing to me. Jesus says $50,000 is just what she could. $50,000, a whole year's salary, is just barely enough to qualify as a beautiful thing. She's done a beautiful thing to me. I put it this way on your sheet. Jesus is honored by an extravagant expense. He's worth so much more. $50,000 in the time span of 2 minutes is still not enough. Go to the Old Testament again. 1 Chronicles chapter 15. 1 Chronicles chapter 15. I'll set up the story for you just a little bit. What happens is the Ark of the Covenant was kidnapped, was captured, was taken away from the people of Israel by the Philistines. And then at one point in time, the Israelites, David led them to recapture the ark. But on their way to bring the ark back into Jerusalem, it began to tip over, and a dude reached out his hand and touched the ark. And God had said only the priests are to carry the ark in this proper way. They weren't carrying the ark in the proper way. It began to tip. The guy reached out. He touched it. When he touched it, he died. He died because that was outside of God's will for what that needed to happen. God needed to demonstrate that He was holy, and you follow His plan or you don't follow any plan. So the guy touched it and he died. So then they left the ark at the nearest house. And this is years later when David says, hang on a second, the ark doesn't belong in some dude's garage. This is the Ark of the Covenant of God. We need to bring it to Jerusalem where the tabernacle is. And so David sets up a place for it. And now when we get to this, chapter 15, David is getting ready to bring the Ark into Jerusalem. See what happens. After David had constructed buildings for himself in the city of David, he prepared a place for the Ark of God and pitched a tent for it. Then David said, no one but the Levites may carry the Ark of God. Aha! He's paying attention to the rules now. Because the Lord chose them to carry the ark of the Lord and to minister before Him forever. David assembled all Israel in Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the Lord to the place He'd prepared for it. And check this out. The word preparation, I want you to keep in your mind as I read the rest of this. Preparation. He called together the descendants of Aaron and the Levites, from the descendants of Kohath, Uriel the leader, and 120 relatives, from the descendants of Merari, Asaiah the leader, and 220 relatives, from the descendants of Gershom, Joel the leader, and 130 relatives, from the descendants of Elizaphan, Shemaiah the leader, and 200 relatives, from the descendants of Hebron, Eliel the leader, and 80 relatives, from the descendants of Uzziel, Aminadab the leader, and 112 relatives. Then David summoned Zadok and Abiathar the priests, and Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab the Levites. He said to them, "You are the heads of the Levitical families. You and your fellow Levites are to consecrate yourselves and bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel." Did he need all those people to bring up the ark? I don't know. I mean, you need 2 guys in front, 2 guys in back, right? You're going to bring the ark up to the place I prepared for it. It was because you, the Levites, did not bring it up the first time that the Lord our God broke out in anger against us. We did not inquire of him about how to do it in the prescribed way. So the priests and Levites consecrated themselves in order to bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel. And the Levites carried the ark of God with the poles on their shoulders, as Moses had commanded in accordance with the word of the Lord. David told the leaders of the Levites to appoint their fellow Levites as musicians to make a joyful sound with musical instruments, lyres, harps, and cymbals. So the Levites appointed Heman, son of Joel, from his relatives, Asaph, son of Berechiah, and from their relatives the Merarites, Ethan, son of Cushiah, and with them their relatives next in rank, Zechariah, Jaaziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Benaiah, Maaseiah, Mattithiah, Eliphilu. That one's awesome. Eliphilu. Mikneiah, Obed-Edom, and Jael, the gatekeepers. The musicians Heman, Asaph, and Ethan were to sound the bronze cymbals. Zechariah, Jaziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Maaseiah, and Benaiah were to play the lyres, according to Alamoth. And Mattathiah, Eliphelehu, Mikneiah, Obed-Edom, Jael, Azaziah were to play the harps directed according to Sheminith. Kenaniah, the head Levite, was in charge of the singing. That was his responsibility because he was good at it. I just added that. He said he was skillful at it. Berechiah and Elkanah were to be the doorkeepers for the ark. Shebuniah, Joshaphat, Nathanael, Amasiah, Zechariah, Benaiah, and Eleazar, the priests, were to blow trumpets before the ark of God. Obed-Edom and Jehiah were also to be doorkeepers for the ark. I just got to tell you something. That is a heck of a lot of planning to bring a box into town. Is that